Hello and welcome to the Leverage Podcast. I'm Paul Richard, your host, and today we have a special guest with us. It's Realtor Extraordinaire, Karey Holliday. How are you, Karey?
I'm fabulous. Thank you.
Good morning. All right, it's good to have you with us today. I'm super excited to talk with you a little bit about what's going on out there in the world of real estate. And we met through one of our networking groups. You're the leader of one of our local networking groups in Springfield, and so enjoy being a part of that. When I can make it to the meeting, you make it so much fun, and it's just a great environment. So thank you for that up front. That's really, really super. And if there are some people watching that are interested in networking, you have we can get a hold of Karey and maybe become a part of the group. That would be awesome. Well, Karey, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us people that don't know about you. Tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay. Well, I am from the area. I grew up in Reed Spring and down by Table Rock Lake. So, very familiar with the area. Moved to Nixa a little bit later after having some kids, and they went to school there and then moved on to Springfield. So, I've been in Springfield for about, I'd say 25 years, I guess. So, still have roots in Reed Spring. We have property there. And so I have three children. My former career was I have a master's degree in education. So I taught in Galena in the local high school there. And I coached cheerleading. So have always kind of had a go all out mindset. And we took those cheerleaders to state, the first and only time they've ever been. So that was a very memorable experience for all of us. And
Nice.
so it's
Yeah.
about creating the experience, right? What value can you add to someone else's life? So that's kind of always been the mainstream for me. And you did mention the networking group. I got involved in that when I was first getting into real estate. So I haven't been into real estate as long as everybody thinks I have, which is a good thing, I guess. Um, but I did love the networking aspect. I am a very social person, and and helping is kind of by nature for me. Um, so I was asked to lead the group because I was a realtor, and as you know, realtors in networking are not generally it takes a long time to get your foot in that door. So luckily, Angela Gaddis said, "Hey, why don't you just start your own group?" Because that's the only way you're going to get to be a realtor in a networking group. so, uh,
There you
so
go.
right, my accountability partner, somebody that I talk to on a daily basis, just very motivated by mindset and how that affects our daily lives and our future goals. So, just on the positive nature of that no dream happens in isolation and that we should come from a place of abundance versus scarcity. So uh, that's how Mojo, manifesting our joint opportunities, was born. And how I became the leader, and I'm still the leader of that group. So I'm very blessed to have such a great group of people that surround me, because they all have that mindset that the more positive we can be, the better off. So you know we we meet weekly on Tuesdays at the Annex, which is next to Eris Pizza on Republic Road, and we would love to have you. It's from 3 to 4:30. We do a lot of networking. Ours is mostly conversational. We speak to the things that have happened to us in a positive way and ask for things that we're looking for. So, and that tends to come to us. So, would love to have anybody that wants to do that. And so that's kind of a little
That's awesome.
backstory, but included with, today's goings on.
Yes, yes. And so what year did you get licensed?
21. I got
21.
licensed in
Okay, so you've been
21
doing 5 years.
and yep, started at EXP. Luckily that's where I met my kind of accountability partner, which I would request anybody. I think that's a great idea to have somebody to bounce things off of that, speaks to the truth of it. Like, yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you, but hey, what about this perspective? I think we all get into our own heads quite a bit and tend to stay there and maybe not look at the brighter side of things sometimes. So we're hardest on ourselves, I believe. So then I moved from EXP to Gateway, which is Joy Bray and Ryan Kell and Nixa, great boutique brokerage, and they do really wonderful things in the Nixa community. Everyone I've worked with, I really love. I'm just trying to find that place where it's really fits my niche, which happens to be mostly investment and geared more towards women. I have a lot of single women that I've placed in home ownership, so I feel very fortunate about that, and I would love to see them also take that further into an investment role too.
Nice, nice. Okay, well, that's great. So COVID was up and running when you got into the business, and so did that affect the way you view the industry at all? Because it certainly was a time where, every house was selling quickly. There was high demand. The buyers, when you got into it, was that going on right then?
I got licensed at the end of 21, so it was in 22, so it was kind of coming off of that a little bit more.
Okay.
But I have been around real estate most of my life anyway. My ex-husband was in real estate, so at in Kimberling City. Um, so my business coach was his broker at the time. He's the one that actually got me into real estate. He just reached out to me on Facebook and he was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I had just recently gotten my insurance license, but hadn't really utilized it very much. And so he said, I'll train you, I'll coach you if you want to get into real estate. I think this has always been your calling and your passion, and it's the people business, and you're a people person. So, anyway, that's kind of how I got into it. And so I've been around it. So I saw the traditional way it was done, that things didn't sell in the first day and there weren't 12 offers, and they weren't, you weren't competing against cash and conventional, and no appraisal and no inspection. So I did know how, so I didn't walk into that thinking, "Oh, this is so easy." We definitely aren't there
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
So I think that has given me some stability in the industry for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, bringing your master's degree and training and experience with teaching, would you say that that's kind of the core of the way you approach your clients? Do you come from an education perspective on that? Does that seem to be the best route for you, or how does that work for you?
Absolutely. So I always feel like we're empowered by what we know, right? So it's the what we don't know that is kind of keeps us restrained. So we don't necessarily want to move forward. It's uncomfortable. Like, for instance, I have a client currently, and she's never had a home. She's never purchased a home of her own. Uh, Works really hard, single mom. She comes from a family that has never purchased a home either. It's just been passed down, and so she doesn't have anyone to ask those questions. She doesn't know how it works. She doesn't know the benefits of that. I think education is always empowering with information. So just trying to guide my clients so that they know what to expect, how this is going to go, what the benefits of that are going to be for them. That yeah, there's going to be some costs, but those costs are definitely going to outweigh what you're doing currently.
Sure, sure. And did you ever go through like the disc profile analysis when you were doing your education or anything like that?
I have, uh-huh, yes.
You did. And then where do you fit on the scale of the DISC, or did you take maybe the Myers-Briggs or something, or did you do one of those other ones? There's so many different
So
ones.
you don't know what my disc is by just talking to me. Yes,
I do know, but I want you to tell the rest of our audience what that is, okay?
yeah.
Because I know
Yeah, so
it.
I'm a high D and a high social, yeah. So that's me. And so when I was working for one of the brokerages that I was at, we were discussing paperwork. And that was probably also where I stumped my toe a lot in education was I love the education process. I love the students, the curriculum. I taught family and consumer science. So for me, it was, those are life skills. Those are things that you're not just gonna, you're gonna learn the equation and then later you might use it or might not. Like these are things you're gonna use on a daily for the rest of your life. So, you kind of have a high sense of obligation when it comes to that. So just utilizing that information. So back to, you know, am I good at paperwork? Not so much. I do know how to do the contracts, and when I read one and it's not right, I can tell you right off the bat. Definitely high attention to detail. But you know, I think for a real estate agent, there's a fine line in doing all the paperwork and doing all the negotiating and finding the leads and finding that right house and doing all of the processes. And so I'm not the paperwork person. So we had that discussion that day, and it was like, where am I going to be most beneficial to this company? Is it behind the computer filling out the paperwork, or is it out in the field helping people purchase their, their dream home, their future home, their investment property, whatever that may be? Like that's, I think we all have to play to our strengths instead of like trying to also incorporate weaknesses. I think we spend way too much time trying to make it this whole big picture when in actuality, if we just focused on what we do really well, we find the person that does the paperwork really well, which is created a new niche within real estate, which is the transaction coordinator. For people who don't know, that's the person that does all the paperwork through the entire transaction, make sure that it goes really well so that the agent who's also helping someone else find their dream isn't dropping the ball on your transaction. And there's a lot of deadlines to meet and etc. So you want to make sure that part is captured as well, and done to the highest of everyone's ability. So I don't do the paperwork well. So on the disc, I didn't score high in that category. I'm definitely a dominant social person. So
That's awesome. So you'd be a DI, and I'm
mhm.
also a DI. My I is about as high as the D. Love to
Same.
have fun, and that's a good combination. I like it. It's kind of a rare, as you look at the percentages, it's a little bit of a rare element in but it's good. We need to be leading, and we love the people at the same time. Make it fun. And I recently was appointed the leader, as of last week, of one of the networking groups in Branson. So,
Yay.
I'm,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So super excited about that. So things are going well. But tell us a little bit about. Okay, so you've been in the business roughly 5 years, and what have been some of the key things that you've learned probably through this process that have helped you to stay in the business? Because about 30% of agents fall out every year out of the business. So what lessons did you learn that have sustained you through the last 5 years?
Well, one of them is definitely being attention to detail and creating relationships. So, which enters networking. I did like a lot of networking in the beginning. And, when you first go into those groups and you're a realtor, everybody's like, oh, okay, another realtor. Because everybody knows a realtor, at least 10, correct? And
Right.
so they've seen them come and go. Because like you said, 30% don't stay in the business. So they're not going to send you their business right away because they're not sure you're going to stay. So earning that place of stability and dependability, like is she going to do a great job? She's new at this, like you know, um, referrals in any other industry is besides real estate. So that would be the lending side of it as well. This is the biggest purchase of someone's life. So when you make that referral, you have to know that that person has integrity and the ability to see it all the way to the end. They're not going to drop the ball. They're not going to make you look foolish for sending the referral to them. So I think that you have to you have to be that person. You have to walk the walk. And so to carry that integrity, knowing that, hey, this is a huge deal, and that referral, how that comes to you is also a huge deal. So, making sure that you do it not just for yourself and your client, but the person who referred you, because they have, they put a lot of faith that you're going to help whoever they referred, be it friend, family, or, someone that they also have just met. But that reflects on them. So, you got to keep that in mind. And, in the industry, have working in it now, like you say, almost 5 years, you meet a lot of people that have been in it longer, a lot longer, and you don't know how they got there. And so the better question to ask is not how long have you been in the industry, but how busy you are in the industry. And busy is probably the wrong word, but there's some people who've been in the industry 25 years, but their husband was a builder and they sold a couple of houses here and a couple of houses there, or they've worked for friends and family, and they're not current on the laws, they're not current on the contracts, and therefore, some of that falls through. I just received a contract the other day, and luckily, because I'm not the paperwork person, my expert transaction coordinator caught that it was on a form from 2 years ago. The contracts in 2 years change a lot. So if you're not up to date, that can make a huge difference. Like, that's why we have E&O insurance. But it's, you want people who are abreast of what's going on currently and that have taken the time to, know what the new laws are, especially, with NAR coming out and, with commission and et cetera. So that has, that's played a big role. And I think it's just super important that, we pay close attention to that. So being in the industry, having a license and being embedded in the industry are very different things.
You're absolutely right. I love that. And so maybe take us through, your process a little bit, like with your buyers. Like if you have a new referral or maybe a new internet lead comes through or whatever, and you begin to build that relationship, can you walk us through a little bit how you build the relationship, gain trust with the client, and then take them into the transaction and through that?
Absolutely. So, generally, when a lead comes to me, most of mine are referral leads. I do get a few leads through our brokerage, which is the 417realestate.com. And so some do come to me that I don't know or don't have like somebody I can refer to, like your friend or your, whomever sent it to me. But I usually try to start out with, how did you come to me? What are you looking for? And are you pre-qualified? I want to qualify that lead right off the bat. I'm not someone who likes to waste time. So, and I try to tell them I'm not also, it may appear differently, and I don't know, maybe I see it differently, but I'm not a warm fuzzy sometimes. I'm very much, because I'm attention to detail, I'm also about the numbers. And so I'm a very numbers related person. And that's why I think investment clients work really well with me. They don't get emotional about the transaction because it either works or it doesn't. And so if it doesn't fly, then we don't do it. But when you're selling a home, especially to a single woman who's never had that purchase in her life, like you have to kind of rein that in for me. But I can relate because I'm also there. So I just try to pre-qualify, like have you done the steps to get to the point for us looking at houses? And I don't do that to, put them in a position they feel uncomfortable in, but I don't want them to fall in love with a house they can't afford. Like that would be, in my opinion, that's way more cruel than it is to say, hey, do you qualify or not? So I definitely try to pre-qualify my clients right off the bat, and then I try to get a sense of what they they want. So recently, I had someone that showed a house that I had listed, one of my listings, and it was the first house of eight. Never in the history of me doing it or my business coach, who was in the business for 35 years, would eight houses on one day be a good idea. I think you get lost in that and you're not going to find what you want. Number one, I don't know if they wrote a contract that day. My feeling would be they probably did not, because you're never going to remember all eight, for one. And so you're going to remember the first one and you're going to remember the last one. And that's about it. So two of the eight. So three is generally the max that I would show a house. So I want to narrow it down. I want to know what what your main thing is that you want. I'm not going to live without this. I want this. So if you're a man, sometimes you got to have that third bay garage, you know. So what is your line there? And then what is the one thing in your current home that you really love that you would like to see? And then something in your current home that you can't stand, you wouldn't want it. It's, not the thing for you. So I try to, narrow it down in a specific way so that they can kind of have those in mind when we start looking at homes. Your deal breaker, and can you picture yourself there? Is it the feeling? For me, that's what kind of is the underlying current in my life. Like, how do I feel about this? And I want that to translate to my clients, because I want them to have, you don't want to walk into your house and feel like this isn't your house, it's somebody else's house. And so I feel for them that they should, have that feeling when they walk in, like, ooh, this kind of belongs to me. Like, I see myself here, I can fit here. So, we have those conversations. Like, one of my listings currently, I came back afterwards to check on it, and someone had played with a toy in the backyard, and the chairs were, scooted out from the dining room table. And I just had this overwhelming feeling that, oh, these people were trying to see if this house fit them, like if they belonged here. So I try to walk them through that feeling, because it really should be an experience. Like, you're buying your first home. Like, this is amazing. Like, you've made it this far. And, and then what to expect after we do the contract. Like, hey, we're going to go through a negotiation process. There's this piece that has to do with numbers, and, we're going to have to deal with the lender and what that looks like. And, then we're going to go through the inspection process, which then again is another negotiation period. And then after that, everything will kind of fall into place. We're going to do the appraisal, which this year, I'll have to say, appraisals have been pretty difficult. I've had to walk a lot of clients through some unhappy appraisals on both sides. Like, hey, as the buyer, I thought it was going to appraise for more, and an investor side of that's what you want. And a couple of listings for personal homes where, wow, it didn't appraise out, and so it works kind of for the buyer's benefit, but also the seller. So having to talk them through those numbers and how that's going to look if you accept it or you don't, and then what the closing table looks like, and then what the after is. So a lot of people don't understand the after part of purchasing a home, and that's a big part of it. Like, you're going to get some paperwork that doesn't belong to, doesn't pertain to you, but it looks like it pertains to you, so don't. And you're going to have insurance and taxes, and those are going to be in your, but they could also change. So it could also change your payment. So I think a lot of us leave it at the closing table that, hey, that's it and that's all there is. But I try to see my clients through the whole process, with the numbers and what that looks like, and getting the right insurance quote. And so that's another thing, is our clients depend on us for a lot of industry professionals. So whether that be somebody who does the inspection, somebody that provides the insurance, if you need repairs done. So you also have to be well connected to have the right people in place to help your client. So it's not just us solely doing the whole thing. So it is important to have those relationships built then with other industry professionals, because they all are part of the transaction throughout really the life of that loan. So I think that's important too.
How did you develop your lender relationships? Was it basically through, networking type groups? Is that where you met your lenders?
It was, and I will tell you, I'm kind of stringent. I just talked to one of my a new lender. Actually, we have a a transaction we're doing together. Sorry about that. And anyway, he is newer in the industry as well. And I will say that I am also very, I lean more towards people that are younger and that are newer in the industry. They seem not to have a lot of baggage that they bring with them or ideals that maybe don't fit today's market. And they have a different zest, you know? So, for instance, my son is in the moving business. He's 25, he's owned it for 4 years. Like, he is so customer service oriented, and he works with a lot of my peers in the industry. He does an amazing job. I get compliments on how he runs his business all the time, which isn't on me. But maybe he's seen something. I don't know. Uh, but anyway, this young lender, he is on the buyer side. I'm on the listing side. And after he received the contract, he reached out to me, which is very unusual, actually, in my experience anyway, that the buyer's lender reaches out to the agent on the other side. So he reached out to me. We had a great conversation. This is how, this is kind of my process and how I got into it. That first phone call, we created a relationship. And then he called me the next Monday to give me an update. We talked another 45 minutes. And so the agent on the other side, not maybe as engaged as I would like, but we all have a different level of that. So him and I are basically making the deal happen. So he's like, from now on, I'm just going to call you when I have a question about the buyer, and I'm the seller's agent. So if that tells you anything, my son did say this morning, we were having a conversation. He's like, yeah, you are a mama bear. It doesn't matter if they are yours or not. So that's kind of my nature. And so and like I told another agent a couple transactions ago, we got to the negotiation process of the inspection, and he's like, oh, here we go with the inspection. Are you guys, how do you feel about that? You can ask for anything, that might break the deal. And I said, hey, listen, there is nothing in my mind that could mess up the deal at this point. An inspection, we're going to negotiate as professionals. That's our job, is to figure this out. We haven't found a buyer, found a seller, got them together, accepted a contract, got this far to let an inspection ruin the deal, because then everybody has to start over, all four of us. And that's not a good place to be. So they've agreed. I want to sell this house. I want to buy this house. We're agreed on the price. So why would we let the inspection mess that up? So I never have that in my mind. We're going to overcome whatever obstacle after we get the contract accepted that has to happen. So that's kind of the mindset that I always go forward in, and it seems to work.
That's awesome. And part of the buyer orientation, let's just say if you've got an experienced buyer, sometimes even they aren't aware of the local market, what's going on exactly. So sometimes just talking about, okay, well, currently in our MLS here, there's 5,000 listings right now for a habitable property, not land. And that's kind of been the norm during kind of a balanced market, it seems like. And giving those education, understanding that, okay, well, right now, your average days on market for your property is going to be 120 days, or at least that's the average. And now when we get to the negotiation process, if we get a buyer, let's hang in there, right? If you're counseling a seller, right? You're saying, okay, let's kind of, take the emotion out of it as best we can and try and
Right.
get this thing through. Because on the other hand, like when we talked about in 2021, it was like, you know, it doesn't matter. The buyer's going to buy the house, even if the roof is not on. You know what I mean? They're just going to buy the house and go through that process. So it's, you know what I'm saying? Just crazy, right? But, it was just, you're going to have offers before you even get the sign in the yard. And so it's our duty, I think one of the best phrases I ever learned was, I don't I don't do the market. That market's not my doing. I just bring it to you and show you what's going on, and that's my best advice to you during this particular, set of circumstances that we have in front of us. And that sounds like you do the same thing. You're coming from an education perspective, and it's like this is just the way it is, And sometimes people think they can play the market. If you're buying and selling, you're pretty much going to be in the same market if you're buying and selling right now, right? So if it's a seller's market, it may take longer to get rid of your house, and you might want to, take your time to buy or whatever the situation is. And even I think when situations come up where they're like, can I do a contingent on my home sale, right? Do something like that. Can I write an offer contingent on my home sale? Well, in some markets, that'd be unacceptable for most people. And then like today, it'd probably be acceptable or more acceptable because they're glad to have an offer, sometimes in that case. So what I hear you saying is, yes, you educate them. And one of the things early on you said is, when you became a newly licensed person, you're just getting started. I think when you start with education, people don't really ask how long you've been in the business, or at least I've seen that in the real estate industry, is that if you come from the perspective of educating and helping them see what's going on out there, they're not aware of everything. They might know some parts of it. So I love that about your approach and the way you handle those folks. What do you do as far as are you doing any advertising or brand building for yourself out there? Is there anything you're doing in particular in that realm?
No, I honestly I do not do a lot of that. My branding, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
started out early on as a queen of real estate. My accountability partner said, "Wow, that's kind of brash," and I said, well, not if you think of it and outside of today's, maybe outside of what goes on today. So a lot of times when we say queen today, people think of diva. I'm definitely trying not to be that. But a queen has integrity. She fights for her people, right? And so she's very protective, and she's going to make sure things happen in the best possible way for the people. There's service leadership. And to me, service leadership is the most important thing that you can provide. And whether that's to, clients that I have in real estate, whether that's people within my networking group, whether that's, in a friend group. So to me, that's where the authentic part of me comes from. Like, I want to provide service and the leadership necessary, whether it's a friend group or clients. So um, that's where that came from. So my tagline is, as a queen of real estate, I have the key to your kingdom or your castle. And that key might be something besides the key to the front door.
Sure. Yeah. Now, you wanted to talk a little bit about numbers too, and I'm thinking in the realm of the investors that you talked about and your focus on investors. Is it typical for you to do the analysis of the numbers for the client, or are generally is the client already, running some numbers on, what their returns would be and that type of thing? What can you speak to that for a minute?
Sure. So, actually, when I speak about numbers, it is across the board. So it can be residential or investment. And investment property numbers, those guys already kind of have a formula that they use. I try to make sure that before we even I even send a property, that those numbers, so I do the kind of the numbers on the front end before I even get it to them. And then they see if it fits in their formula. And then the banker sees if that's going to fly for them in their formula. So there's a lot of formulas when it goes into the investment side of it for sure. And each player in that has, their own formula that they use to see if that will work for them. But the numbers on the residential side, going back to what you spoke to is in regards to contingency, I see it just a little bit differently, because the market is taking so long for the buyer to, if they have a house to sell and they start looking at homes, I think that also sets them up for a little bit of disappointment because they might find something they really like, but over here, their house isn't selling, right? So they've looked at something and they've given somebody else, another seller, some hope, but they're also sitting on the market now they're waiting for this person's house to sell. And so both of them have this anticipation with every showing that, this may be the one. This may be the one. I may get what I want. So I think it's a little bit premature, especially in the very beginnings of listing a home, to start looking for something else to buy. So the contingency offer in my mind is iffy. Like I don't necessarily suggest it. And back to appraisal, when you get to those numbers, I think I alluded to the fact that appraisals haven't been great. So we sometimes have that appraisal that comes in way under. For instance, earlier in the year, I had some clients that were selling their home in Ozark, and the neighbor next door. So the homes in the subdivision were all built at the same time, basically the same floor plan. They had upgraded some of their options versus the neighbor. And so they thought, so when we listed it, I did what's called a comparative analysis. So it's a CMA, comparative market analysis. I did that. This is what we listed it at. We did get a buyer that came in, was willing to pay that. Well, in the meantime, the neighbors had already purchased another home in another state, and they offloaded their property, which means they sold it for the bare minimum that they needed to get out of it, which affected the entire neighborhood because now the market, the comparative analysis has that in there. It's a direct comparative to their home, and it was $17,000 less than what we listed it for. But an appraiser has, like, that's their job. It's their obligation to use the direct comparatives. So they lost $17,000 because the neighbor just sold out. So trying to talk someone through those numbers is not completely easy. But they already had a
Yes.
home in Texas. They had a job in Texas. So, the conversation then gets really difficult. Like, okay, we're going to have to lay all these numbers out. So if we put it back on the market, first of all, that appraisal is good for 6 months. So we're going to get the same appraisal, just a different buyer when we get a different buyer. And so you're still going to be down that money. Plus the living expenses, one of you is already in Texas and one of you is here. So you're paying rent there and you're paying your mortgage here and 2 utilities and 2 insurance, like all the things are still going on but you're just paying 2 of them. So do those numbers make sense for you to back out of this deal and put it back on the market? So ultimately they had to eat 17 grand because the neighbor sold out. So those numbers, like when you get to talking about it, they even work for residential. So you've got to keep in mind, yeah, this is a low deal, but is it the only offer you've gotten in 120 days? And are you paying 2 mortgages? And are you going to get the home that you want? Like there's some costs that you have to weigh the pros and the cons of for sure.
Absolutely. And as realtor, sometimes you have to bring the bad news, right? Because it's the truth of the situation, right? And whether whether they want to hear it or not, this is the reality of the situation. And we didn't. We weren't involved in that other transaction, but that affects us in the market. And so you're absolutely right. And then it's just the reality of what's going on. And you have to let that sink in sometimes, don't you?
Oh yeah. So tempering the bad news with the reality of it. So there is a way to do it, so that
Yes.
people are like, oh my gosh, because I mean it's devastating news that hey, I thought I had this much extra money and now I don't. And nobody likes to look in their wallet thinking they got a 50 and end up with the five. Like that just doesn't correlate to what I your mind has already basically spent that money. When you list your house, you have a number that you know is your bottom number, and after you've gotten an offer and before the appraisal happens, you think that's what you're going to get, right? So when appraisal comes in and takes an extra 17 grand out of the deal, it can be very difficult. So how you handle that, and I think mostly with reality, but in such a kind way, because that's where, you know, it's not going their way. And so we also have to kind of be the therapist in a way, we have to be like, you have to temper the reality and the numbers with some compassion and some grace for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In today's world of AI and internet and all those things, the clients have access to information about what's going on through different, Zillow, et cetera. Yet a lot of times you can't put together a good picture just from that. There's just so much information. Some of it's not even accurate, and trying to assess that is very difficult. So it's almost information overload in that regard. So sometimes we're just saying, yes, this is true that Zillow said this, or Realtor.com said this. At the same time, here's what's really happening in your neighborhood, et cetera, and that type of thing as well. So when you're doing a listing presentation, what's your approach to that? Obviously, education you talked about. Is there anything in particular in your listing presentation that sets you apart? Because I know a lot of realtors have some different aspects on what they show during that time. Do you have anything in particular?
I don't. I've shadowed a lot of other agents. Listing was never my forte. And then I went to a company that was basically all listings. And so I shadowed everyone in the company to see how they did their presentations so that I, would be informed and educated because I'm a lifelong learner. So that's how that works. And I too much information, as you talked about, uh, information overload. I could see people at a certain point with one of the agents just lose all, like they just glazed over. That isn't a look that you want when you're trying to gain someone's business. So for me, it comes with less. I figure when I'm doing a listing presentation, I will give you the high points because that's what they want. They want the high points. We're used to having everything broken down for us. We don't need an in-depth translation of every aspect of the listing because then they get lost and then it's like seeing 8 houses in one day. They're not gonna come out ahead. So I always want to hit the high points, the most beneficial things. So in a listing, I tend to direct them to market, condition, and market the marketability of a home. So if the condition isn't great, then the market value is not going to be great. They correlate with each other. So I have a listing now. There could be some things that were upgraded that would be minimal effort, but it would make the marketability much better. It would increase the value. So I think sometimes people don't see how easy or beneficial it would be for them to increase the value of their home by just doing some condition items. So, cleanliness is a huge thing. If you walk into a listing, it doesn't smell great. Smell is easy to get rid of. We have ozone machines, we have carpet cleaners, we have deodorizers. Like that's easy to get rid of. But from the very beginning, when I started showing houses, I was like, somebody has got to invent something that gets rid of odor because like from the moment you walk in the door. So if we need like a weather strip that has deodorizer in it, so when you walk through the door, that's the first thing you smell is home baked goods. Okay, great. Like it changes your mindset, right? So
Yep.
I think that's easy to do. It doesn't cost you a lot of money. We're not talking thousands of dollars. So, wash your dog, deodorize your carpet. So those conditions will change the value drastically. So I try to speak more to that because yeah, I'm going to advertise it where everybody else advertises it. That's a given. So I don't want to, here's a spreadsheet of what everybody else in the neighborhood this many times over 3 years did and how the graph goes up and then it peaks and then it drops. Like I'm already lost, right? Aren't you lost? Like, but you can get on board with the condition and the marketability value all day long. So that tends to be my focus, and that, who we hire as a photographer, how you keep the yard, because people are going to drive by. So you need to have those things to me are the foundation of how the listing is going to go. So that's what I always concentrate on.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a super approach. I love that. And it's part of the sorry, my phone just rang. I apologize. And so part of what I'm wondering here is when you're counseling them, what do you see? I know nobody has a crystal ball, right? As far as what's going to happen. Here we are in the end of second quarter of the year in 2026. Do you have any insights as to what might happen in the market in the next 3 to 6 months? See anything in particular that occurs to you?
So my opinion in regards to the market is it was neutral. Now it's not. It's the it's not even it's just a very different market. And all historically they change, and depending on what is going on in the nation, we don't have that control. So that's the thing that I try to lead with my clients is, you got to understand this is a very different market. And markets are, yes, statistically we can say it's this or that, but it's changed for me. I have a listing came out the 21st of May. We had one showing, which was one of 8, and then nothing, not one, not a call, not any, nothing. And then day before yesterday, we had 2. We had 2 the next day. I've had phone calls about it. So when the gas prices go down, people can start driving around and looking at houses, I guess. So
Yeah.
I would say it fluctuates with the gas, the price of gas. I don't have a crystal. You're
I
right. I don't
mean,
have a crystal ball for sure, but
yeah.
people
But it
people
does
tend to
affect it.
follow
Yeah.
what's going on in the nation, and I think when they're scared about how the prediction of how things are go. So I can't predict. I've told my client, because they're looking at paying 2 mortgages, and I'm like, when that first offer comes in, you're going to have to weigh whether it's good enough and on that side of it, sellers or buyers are like, they've been holding on to it, we'll lowball. And that's something else I kind of want to speak to is that, when I list a property, I've done all the things we've talked about. I've done the comparative analysis. I've looked at the condition of the home to the value, what I think appraisal might be. I sometimes even suggest, let's do a pre-appraisal so we have a great idea of what that's going to look like. It's going to cost you some money up front, but it's going to save you a lot of heartache and maybe a lot of money in the end. because you're going to know what to expect. I also do that with inspection, like, hey, let's get a pre-inspection so you can fix some of the things you're handy enough to fix before they have you hire a professional to do it, because that's going to cost you a lot more money. So it looks like a little bit of money up front, but it's a heck of a savings in the end. So I can help them with those things on the front end to try to make the market work in their favor. So I think that's really all we can do is like, hey, here's some tips and tricks, some things that we can supersede what's going on in the nation to put your listing in the best light it can be in this market.
That's so good because you're right. The gas prices affect a lot, right? When it's $4 a gallon, you're like, I don't even know if I can afford to go out and buy that right now. I might have Walmart bring it to me.
Right.
It'd be cheaper to do that than to drive over there and get something at Costco or something. And it's
True.
it's weird how that works, and especially in Branson. I mean, Branson is a drive-in tourism place, and so if you're looking to leave on Friday and come back Sunday, and you're hauling your RV with you or something, and you're going, man, I get 7 miles a gallon, diesel's 5.15. I don't think we can make that work economically. So those are decisions that are going on out there and that type of thing. So I'm totally with you on that. And I think, like the jobs reports just came out this week and several things. So economically, there's a lot of good things going on out there. And then we've got interest rates and gas prices have been, and the uncertainty in the Middle East, of course, has played into it. And so people are kind of like, do I just wait, right? Do I just hold off? And I think personally, I think we're on the precipice of some good things happening for the market overall for all of us. But it remains to be seen, right? Because we don't control those things. Well, Karey, this is awesome. Is there anything that we didn't get the chance to cover that you'd like to talk about or address before we close things out today?
I don't think so. I think we got to touch on a little bit of everything. So if there's any questions, I'm always available, and I do love what I do. So it's a passion, and it is the people business, and I love helping people. And as the queen of real estate, I'm going to help you too.
Awesome. Oh, I will ask you a question so
Mhm.
that the folks know. What generally is your area of coverage? So, where will you go from Springfield, et cetera? Tell us a little bit about your reach.
Okay. So I am from, the Table Rock Lake area. So I go as far as, that to probably the Arkansas border. I did show a property in Seligman, just because she was a family member, which most people don't know where that is. I did not. But it kind of depends on the situation. I prefer to go places that I can help you. I would much rather refer you to someone that's an expert in that area and knows about that area than to try to do something I don't know. So I want what's best for my clients, not what's best for me. So I will refer you if it's outside my area. So give me a call. If it doesn't work for me, I would be happy to find you an agent. And when you refer, you also follow that person. I do anyway, with the high sense of obligation. I make sure that the agent is kind of accountable because I'm pretty big on that. So I want to make sure that you're treating the client that I referred you really well. Do you have any questions? Always refer back to me. And if I have to reach out to the agent, I definitely will.
Absolutely. What's the best phone number to reach out to you, Karey?
417-839-1168.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the podcast today. It's been super fun to have you on. Learned so much from you, and I'm sure our audience will too. So thanks again for being with us today, Karey.
Well, thank you, Paul, for having me.